Yo, what's up guys, my name is Gemini and today we're going to do something a little bit different. Today I'm going to share with you my personal opinion on the top 5 PS1 games that deserve a remake. Let's go. First up we have Unholy War. Growing up, my younger brother and I had very little aptitude for sports, the outdoors or other humans. So we spent a lot of the time we weren't beating the crap out of each other and lying to our parents about it, beating the crap out of each other in video games. One of our collective favourites was Unholy War. In 1998, Toys for Bob and Eidos Interactive introduced me to the world of Zara, a fictional world inhabited by the aptly named Arcane clan, whose army consists of the planet's most powerful races working in tandem to combat the even more aptly named Technos clan, who plan on invading the planet of Zara for its resources. While most fighting games of the era featured predominantly human characters and relied heavily on familiar movements and motion capture technology to simulate combat, Unholy War broke the mold with unusual character designs and unique special techniques. The game features 16 playable characters, each one a representative of their own individual race, including 2 secret unlockable super characters, one from each faction. From a gameplay standpoint, things are pretty simple. The game has 2 modes to choose from, Mayhem and Strategy. Mayhem is where most people start out, and it's where I personally had the most fun. Both players select a team and then a character and are dropped into one of 16 3D battle arenas, all of which have their own environmental hazards and mechanics which benefit certain characters and are detrimental to others. Players fight one-on-one bouts until either player runs out of usable characters. The second mode is Strategy, which is slightly more complicated but serves to explain the plot and expand on the nature of the different alien races featured in the game. Considering as an 8-year-old I didn't entirely grasp the concept of strategy games in general, I pretty much exclusively used this mode to learn all about my favourite characters and the story behind them. I always loved the idea of being able to play as everything in a video game. The fact that you not only had the freedom to choose to play as the good and the bad guys, but also select from a diverse range of species from each one made this game very appealing to me. While the plot itself is fairly simple, the character and level designs of Unholy War are what make me believe it would make a fantastic remake. These designs reimagined with today's graphics could blow the mind of an entire generation of new gamers. Also as a side note, the original release of Unholy War for PlayStation came with a Legacy of Kain Soul Reaver demo built in, which to be honest might even feature in this list. Coming in at number 2 we have
Nightmare Creatures.
Set in London, 1834, Nightmare Creatures has you choose one of 2 heroes with which to do battle with a seemingly endless barrage of increasingly more disturbing beasties ranging from classics such as zombies and werewolves to these. Like with most games on this list, I initially discovered this title on a demo disc which allowed us to play the first level before fading to black and leaving us wanting more. And as a huge horror fan and reasonably disturbed child, more I wanted. After selecting a character between either Father Ignatius Blackward or Nadia Franciscus and being introduced to the non-fictional streets of 1800s London, we are presented with a single shambling zombo, and one of the first things I noticed about this game is the ability to tear him in half. Needless to say, that was all 9-year-old me needed to see before I was officially hooked. Seeing such a variety of monstrous enemies and having the ability to shred them by constantly mashing a single button made this an endlessly satisfying experience for young Gemini. Even as an adult, I look back on this game fondly and often see it compared to more recent titles such as Bloodborne and Silent Hill. Although heavily action-focused, even going so far as subjecting you to an adrenaline meter, which can only be replenished by killing enemies, the game carries the horror aspect very well. Hiding enemies in obscure places, using ambient music and spooky sound effects to immerse you in gameplay, and scaring the pixelated pants off you with jump scares from time to time. What? As you progress through the game, you can find items and weapon upgrades to help you on your journey, most of which accommodate our hero's newfound violent streak. Guns, mines, dynamite, and even Sub-Zero style AoE ice magic add another layer to the already gory gameplay. While by today's standards, Nightmare Creatures leaves a lot to be desired in terms of controls, graphics and longevity, a remake with modern technology could see us presented with horrifically reconceptualised monster designs, smoother combat mechanics, and potential for a good bit of old hack and slash survival horror, all while maintaining that subtle air of nostalgia that comes with playing a familiar title remade. As a last note, I will share probably my favourite feature of this entire game. The janky controls, among other complications, made this game pretty tough to complete for 9-year-old me, so I did what everyone did when times got tough. Cheat! This game had a simple cheat code that you could enter at the title screen, which allowed you access to options such as removing the dreaded adrenaline meter, carrying an unlimited supply of all items in-game, and my personal favourite, playing as the monster. Every level outside of the boss battles would let you control one of the game's plethora of abominations, a feature which I wanted in practically every game I've ever played in my life. The idea of taking control of the enemies and using them to do my bidding, Abe's Odyssey style, was one of the coolest cheat codes I'd ever seen in a game, and had I ever been able to complete the game traditionally, I would have discovered that this was actually an unlockable bonus for beating the game also. Coming in at number 3, we got Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero. Midway and NetherRealm Studios, even to this very day, continue to bring us groundbreaking titles from the Mortal Kombat franchise. Potentially the greatest fighting game franchise ever made in the history of Earthrealm. As far as remakes go, some of the more recent titles could kinda be considered remakes, seeing as the story tends to revisit the original storylines with updated graphics and whatnot, using alternate dimensions and timelines as a way to continue the story without literally remaking the game. However, in 1997, Midway and NetherRealm Studios introduced us to probably the jankiest, cheapest, most utterly frustrating beat-em-up platformer that has ever had the audacity to inspire me to commit harakiri. Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero. Taking place before the events of the original Mortal Kombat 1, Mythologies follows the story of one of the franchise's most recognisable characters. The Lin Kuei's greatest cryomancer, Bi-Han, is a Chinese ninja warrior who, as well as possessing world-class martial arts capabilities, also has the power to manipulate the temperature of the molecules in the air around him, allowing him to control ice, using his special powers to navigate his environments and deep freeze his enemies, usually resulting in them identifying as a meat-flavoured popsicle. While this game was certainly not without its many, many flaws, it did a great job of expanding on the storyline of a beloved and familiar character from a franchise that I literally couldn't get enough of. So the fact that they took what at the time was a fairly straightforward one-on-one fighting game and gave it an entirely fresh perspective and playstyle made this a very memorable experience. I always wanted to see more games like this one, despite the fact that I was never able to finish the game as a boy without cheat codes. Seeing the history and lifestyles of my favourite characters outside of the tournament was always fascinating to me. Bearing in mind that this was way before the internet had truly taken off, so this was the closest thing to a true backstory experience as we ever had back in the day. I imagined an entire series of these games that would expand on each and every character. Clearly I had no concept of budgets or reviews. Upon reviewing this title solely for the purpose of creating this video, I only just now realised that there's a high probability that this game was created entirely as a promotional precursor to Mortal Kombat 4, considering several of the characters that debut in Mythologies returned in MK4, including Quan Chi, Shinnok and Fujin. Speaking of, the bosses in this game, although simplistic and kind of unimaginative, I would still have liked to have seen a further expansion on some of the elemental gods that we came across in the other levels. Although I do appreciate that this might not have been the best move for Midway given the game's continued expansion to later include element-focused characters such as Blaze and Tremor. While it could be argued that games like Shaolin Monks are in a sense remakes, which expand on the storyline of beloved characters in a more modern way, I still think that this game in particular helped ignite the interest of existing fans and could be done a lot better with today's methods. In at number 4 we have Jade Cocoon. In 1999, I was just discovering the colourful world of Pokemon, which was rapidly growing in popularity due to its release in my home country of England, and I had my mind blown at the discovery that Pokemon games exist, so I can go out and catch them all for myself. Unfortunately, I did not own a Game Boy or in fact any Nintendo console, period. And despite my nightly prayers that a Pokemon game would be released for one of the consoles I did own, like a PlayStation, it simply was not to be. But then, a silver lining appeared in the shape of Genki and Crave Entertainment's Jade Cocoon, Story of the Tamamayu, which according to one of my dad's friends was just like Pokemon. Although skeptical at first, I managed to borrow a demo version of the game from a friend, which allowed me to learn the basic premise of the game and some of the mechanics, and I was instantly taken by what I maintain was an epic anime style opening. I mean, look how cool this looks. That first 5 minutes of gameplay inspired me to save my allowance and eventually purchase the full game for myself because this game was awesome. We play as Levant, a silent protagonist who awakes from constant nightmares of failure and disappointment to find that today he is to become a cocoon master, a position which tasks us with the capture and training of an assortment of forest-dwelling minions which can be tamed with the use of a Pokeball, cocoon, and the sound of a Cocoon Master's instrument of choice, ours being a flute. While the game isn't without its limits, it does a fantastic job of keeping you engaged and makes an effort to build an immersive world with an exciting story featuring twists, turns, and a multitude of fun and exciting characters. Granted, as a 9-year-old, I found the storyline to be confusing and convoluted, and replaying it as a grown-ass man, that hasn't changed much. However, exploring the mysterious and fantastical environment and discovering all of the different minion species there were to capture was enough to keep me entertained for hours on end. Other than being the closest thing to a Pokemon game that 9-year-old me could afford, I found plenty of other reasons to love this title, not least of which was the variety and continuity. And I use these terms together because although commonplace in video games today, it was quite rare to have any visual customization options in any games that I had played up until this point. Seeing my character model change to reflect the different armours and weapons that I had equipped was really quite new to me. Minions had individual elemental properties and movesets that gave them advantages and disadvantages against others, and they could be endlessly merged together to create entirely new, more powerful creations for you to fight with. As your minions level up, they physically grow and evolve, developing visually as well as statistically, giving even more inspiration to level them up. Your character even develops as you level them up, gradually becoming more and more proficient at playing their flute and soothing the souls of more and more dangerous foes, since music doth soothe the savage beast. Speaking of music, for its time this game had a beautiful soundtrack. Each area had a different theme, the battles had atmospheric sound effects, and one of the main things about this game that I remember are the soothing woodwind tones that play as you explore the lush, polygonic landscapes. This game even featured a 2-player battle system where you could pit your minions against your friends using your own individual save files, which was a mechanic rarely seen at the time apart from in, well, you know. Lastly, there were the boss battles. Each area had its own elemental lord who would battle you with their own unique boss minion, which as a 9-year-old blew my tiny little mind. Seeing a game with this amount of style in a remake coupled with next-gen graphics and intense monster design would be seriously cool for me. In at number 5 we have Digimon World 1999. I don't think I've ever in my whole entire life found a video game with more complex mechanics than this one. Mostly due to the fact that a lot was lost in translation, given that the original release of this game had practically all of the dialogue in abbreviated or slang Japanese. That being said, I have a fondness for this game that without an extremely long-winded and conflicting explanation, I'm not sure I could accurately convey with words. I discovered Digimon in 1999 and immediately fell in love with the franchise. The characters were fun and relatable, the animation was great, and the digital world was fascinating and immersive. So when I walked into my local game store and saw this, well, it was time for a bit of the old please, 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 please. Needless to say, my parents caved and bought me the game, and as soon as I saw the intro I was hooked. Granted, it hasn't held up too well by today's standards, but for 9-year-old Gemini, this was epic. I honestly feel like I can make a 2-hour detailed review of this game covering every last detail, including secrets, achievements, guides, adventures, and my unhealthy attachment to my digital companion. Drop me a comment if that's a video you guys would like to see. Digimon World's opening scene shows our character, who we get to name, being sucked into the digital world through a keychain for some reason, then introduces us to a plethora of digital monsters of varying shapes and sizes, one of which is going to be our partner throughout this adventure and help us to save our new home of File City from something. Again, the game when you first start playing isn't overly clear on what you need to do outside of offering obscure hints and tips from the local Digimon, but the learning curve was something that I found the most endearing about this title. Essentially, caring for your Digimon is basically like a hugely upgraded Tamagotchi. Your new friend will tell you when they need food, sleep, medicine, and in order to progress through the game, you need to recruit lost Digimon to the city. Usually through battling, but also through minigames, fetch missions, and sometimes just being in the right place at the right time. Each Digimon you manage to recruit will add their own touch to the city, which will, in one way or another, benefit the player. Add in shops to buy items, banks to store items, a hospital, a better farm, and so on. Basically, you trial and error your way through raising your Digimon, training them to become stronger, then using what little time they have before reverting to their infant state to explore the island. Recruit who you can, and then repeat the process until more of the plot is revealed. By this point, you guys are likely familiar with how much I appreciate variety, and this game offers that in spades, with your companion able to become one of over 60 different digital monsters. Granted, they don't follow the show's canon, and there's been a lot of development in the franchise since this game came out, so revisiting it now could feel lackluster, seeing as the last Digimon game I played, which was Digimon Cyber Sleuth, had over 300 potential characters. But it lacked the genuine emotional connection you build up with your partner and the city that eventually becomes your home. The game does a fantastic job of welcoming you into this bizarre new world where nothing makes sense and gives you great visual motivation to keep growing your city and evolving your Digimon, all while developing relationships with the city's inhabitants and expanding the game's storyline to keep you interested. The music in this game is amazing, and I find some of the tracks in this game truly nostalgic. While the game leaves a lot to be desired, I believe most of its shortcomings are down to limited technology, poor translation, and a lack of exposition as far as training goes. Most of this manifesting as odd character scaling, complicated stat balances, and often ludicrous dialogue. What? However, I believe that all of these issues are simply side effects of trying to crush an entire world of monster battling magnificence into a 660 megabyte PS1 disc. The long and short of this is that I, along with many others, have very fond memories of this janky, awkward 3D virtual pet simulator, and would absolutely love to see a modern yet faithful representation of this game. I'm also aware that Digimon World Next Order tried their hand at this, but without playing the game myself I couldn't tell you if it has quite the same effect as the original. The closest thing I've ever found to a faithful recreation that gives off the same vibe is a project by Matt Jackson and their team. I'm not sure if this project is still in development or not, but you can find some of the footage of their progress in the description below, and I personally think it looks great and would love to see it complete with polish. And that about wraps up this video, guys. What do you think of my top picks? Do you relate to any of my choices, and what would yours be? This video is one of many more to come, so feel free to let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll pin the best suggestion to the top. But that's going to do it for my top picks. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to smash like and subscribe and hit that notification bell if you'd like to see more videos like this from me. And of course, drop your own suggestions below because I will be reading each and every one of them, because I'd like to know what you guys think of this series, as it is a bit different to what you normally expect from this channel. But that's it for now. Until next time, that's game over. Bye.